Ever get that feeling, when you're juggling a dozen browser tabs, maybe trying to plan something, and you just wish your computer could think through the problem?
Yeah, like handle all the tedious little steps for you.
Exactly. And, well, that's the leap we're exploring today. What if your AI could not just answer questions, but actually reason and act on its own to get something done?
Right. We're talking about AI agents.
We are. We're doing a deep dive into AI agents.
Basically, these are AI systems that can perceive what's going on around them, figure out a goal, and then use different tools to actually achieve that goal.
All without us holding their hand every step of the way.
Precisely. It's a pretty big step up from the AI most people are using daily.
Okay, so our mission here is to give you a really clear, practical understanding of how these agents work and, what they might mean for the future, even if you're not super technical.
And we'll start from familiar ground. We know lots of you are already using things like ChatGPT, maybe Google Gemini or Claude.
Right, those are built on large language models, LLMs. That's level one, the foundation.
Think of an LLM as this really powerful text engine. You give it some text and input, a prompt, and it uses all the data it was trained on to generate, well, hopefully, a relevant text response. That's the output.
Pretty straightforward, like asking ChatGPT, hey, draft me a polite email to ask someone for a quick coffee chat.
Yep. Your request is the input. That nicely worded email is the output. Simple input-output.
But then, okay, what if you ask that same chatbot, when's my next meeting?
Well, it hits a wall, right? It doesn't know. LLMs, just on their own, they aren't connected to your personal calendar or your emails.
And they're passive. They just sit there waiting for the next prompt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brilliant with language, but kind of isolated and needing constant direction.
So LLMs are step one. How do we get closer to AI that can actually do things, maybe access that calendar?
Okay, that brings us to level 2, AI workflows. This is where we start adding some predefined logic, some steps on top of the LLM.
So going back to the calendar example.
Right, you could set up a rule, something like, if the user asks about an event, first, go check their Google Calendar, then generate the answer.
Okay. So now if I ask, do I have a meeting with Sarah tomorrow? It could actually look it up and tell me yes or no.
It could. It's got that predefined path, question, check, calendar, answer. It adds a bit more capability.
But it's still limited, I'm guessing.
Definitely. Because what if your next question is, okay, what's the weather forecast for that meeting tomorrow?
Uh-oh. It's going to check my calendar again, isn't it? Which doesn't have weather.
Exactly. The workflow only knows the specific steps we programmed. It can't deviate or figure out, oh, weather isn't in the calendar. I should check a weather app.
So even if we make the workflow more complex, like step 1, check calendar. Step 2, if meeting found, check weather API. Step 3, summarize. It's still just following our script.
Precisely. The human is still the one dictating the entire sequence, the logic, the tools. We're the decision maker.
I've heard the term RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Is that related?
It is, yeah. RAG is basically a common type of AI workflow. It lets the LLM retrieve information like looking something up in a database or your calendar or a document before it generates the answer.
So it's augmenting the generation with retrieved info? Makes sense. It's still part of that defined workflow, though.
Exactly. It's a smarter workflow, giving the LLM more context, but the overall process is still predefined by a human.
Okay, like those automations people build. I've seen examples using tools like Make.com or Zapier, maybe compiling news links into Google Sheets.
Right. Then maybe sending those links to another AI, say Perplexity, to summarize them.
And then feeding those summaries to yet another AI like Claude to draft some social media posts.
Yep. And maybe scheduling it all to run automatically. But the key thing there is
the humans set up every single one of those steps. Which tool, what data, when to run it.
Exactly. And if, say, the LinkedIn post that Claude drafted wasn't funny enough or didn't quite fit LinkedIn's style,
a human has to go back in, tweak the prompt for Claude, maybe adjust the workflow, and run it again.
Right. The iteration, the fixing, the decision-making, it's all still human-driven.
Okay. I think I get the distinction between LLMs just generating text and workflows following set instructions. So where do AI agents come in? What's the big change?
This is level 3, and it's a fundamental shift. Let's use that social media example again.
Okay.
In the workflow, the human decided. Compile news, summarize, draft post, using specific tools in that order.
Right.
With an AI agent, you give it the goal. Create engaging social media content about today's AI news.
Just
the goal. Now, the LLM itself becomes the decision maker. It starts to reason, about the best way to achieve that goal.
So it thinks, okay, what steps do I need? What tools are best?
Precisely. It might decide, maybe just scraping headlines isn't enough. I should look for deeper analysis. It then acts by choosing and using the appropriate tools. Maybe it picks a different news source or uses a specific summarization technique it thinks is better.
And it can choose different tools than the ones I might have picked in a workflow.
It could, yes. And then, crucially, it can iterate. Maybe it drafts a post, then uses another LLM or a different tool to critique its own draft.
Like asking, is this post actually engaging? Does it follow LinkedIn best practices?
Exactly. And it does this critique and refinement cycle autonomously without you needing to step in after each draft.
Wow. Okay, so the big sentence here, the most important difference is
The human decision maker in the workflow is replaced by an LLM reasoning engine in the agent.
the LLM decides the how.
That's it. The core components are reasoning about the goal, acting by selecting and using tools, and iterating on the approach autonomously until the goal is met, or it determines it can't be met.
That sounds like that React framework people talk about, reason and act.
Yeah, it's very much aligned with that idea. It's that loop. Think about the next step, take the action, see the result, think again.
That example you mentioned, the AI vision agent finding skiers in video footage.
Right, from Andrew Dang's demo.
It wasn't just matching pixels. It had to somehow reason what a skier generally looks like: skis, poles, snow, motion.
Then act by analyzing hours of video, frame by frame potentially, identifying those patterns.
And then returning just the relevant clips, all without a human manually tagging skiers beforehand or telling it exactly how to scan the video.
That feels almost like magic compared to just running a script. It's the AI figuring it out.
It's that autonomous reasoning and action that defines the agent. It's not just following orders, it's problem solving. Okay, let's recap quickly. Level 1. LLMs, great at generating text from a prompt.
Like ChatGPT, passive, needs instructions.
Level 2. AI workflows. LLMs plus predefined steps and tools like checking a calendar or using RAG to look things up.
But still following a human-defined script, the human decides the how.
And level 3, AI agents. The LLM becomes the decision maker, reasoning about the goal, choosing tools, acting, and iterating all on its own.
That's the core progression. The key difference really is who or what is making the decisions about the steps to take.
It really shifts the perspective, doesn't it? When you think about all the things we do now, even the stuff we've automated with simple workflows, how might AI agents change that? Moving from us giving detailed step-by-step instructions to just giving the AI the objective and letting it figure out the best way.
That is absolutely the provocative thought to leave everyone with. How does that change how we interact with technology and get things done?
It's a lot to think about. This has been a really insightful breakdown. Thank you.
Glad we could explore it.
And for everyone listening, if you found this deep dive helpful and want to explore more topics like this, please do help us reach 1,000 subscribers for Le Podcast de Philippe.
Your support helps us keep making these.
Thanks for tuning in.